Hey guys. Hi. Sorry for the late start. I thought that I could plug in my computer and I could not. I thought that I had 25 minutes, but I have only 20, and I thought I was in a smaller room, but I'm here. So I clearly didn't get all of the information, so I'm sorry about that. I'm going to try to respect the time constraint as much as possible. I might overstep a little bit at the end, but I'll try to go fast. So I'm Jenna. I'm the CTO of Mellon. Mellon is a company that has worked for the past 2 years on the Mellon project. The Mellon project has a vision of building a new infrastructure, a decentralized infrastructure for asset management. So just for the story and following the previous talk about how ICO projects spent your money, I'm here to tell you how we spent the money that we raised 2 years ago in February 2017. We raised 2.9 million Swiss francs, and the company Mellon was mandated for the development of the V1 of the Mellon protocol. So we actually released that V1 about a week ago. So exactly 2 years after we raised those funds. So we're very happy about that. And I think today I'm kind of like going to walk you through everything that we have worked on and built during those 2 years. So what we're going to see. First of all, we're going to check out the Mellon V1. So what is the protocol, what it is that we built, and we're going to have a sneak peek into the interface. Then I think I will go kind of fast on the second part, Melonomics, but I think it's still important to mention what is our token model and the token economics behind it. And after that, we'll see what is our governance model, because Mellon, the company, had a defined lifetime of 2 years, meaning that after 2 years, we actually liquidated the company 2 weeks ago in order to really decentralize the governance and the maintenance of the project. So we're going to start with the first part, Mellon V1. So for those who don't know or are not familiar with Mellon yet, what is Mellon? Mellon is an open source, completely open source protocol for decentralized and on-chain asset management. Technically speaking, it is a set of rules that implement the behavior of an investment fund, and those rules are coded into a set of smart contracts that run on the Ethereum blockchain. So I think the best way to really understand what Mellon is to take a look at how you would actually use this protocol to set up your fund. So hopefully that goes fine. So full screen. And all right, so this is the interface that we built that allows you to access easily our smart contract without having any technical skills. So when you go in and want to create a fund, you're going to have to define your fund name. You're going to be able to choose the exchanges, decentralized exchanges that you want your fund to be allowed to trade on. And you're going to also choose the assets that you accept investment in. So you could, choose all of the asset universe, just a few. So here I think we're going to choose investments authorized in WETH and also in Mellon and DAI. So basically, the whole fund setup process is about defining the rules and parameters of your fund. The next step is defining your fee structure. So just as in the traditional asset management world, you're going to have to set your management fee and performance fee. The only difference here is that all of this happens on smart contracts, and everything is calculated on-chain. So now this kind of looks like your investment fund prospectus, and the next step is actually to deploy this set of rules to the Ethereum blockchain. So in the video, so this happens in 9 steps, like 9 transactions. We're not going to go through the 9, but so I cut the video a little bit. But just so you see how it is, you have those 9 steps. You're going to have to confirm the transactions every time. We're integrated with the hardware wallet using Frame that you see on the right screen, on the right side of the screen. So that allows you to use your ledger or Trezor directly to sign the transaction of your fund. So this is going to be fast forwarded, I think. Yeah, cool. So at this point, your fund is created, and the next step is actually to define more rules for your fund. So that is the risk profile. So the risk profile, what is it? It is a set of rules that you choose and that you can combine. So that could be, you could be saying, I don't want to have more than 5 positions in my fund. 5% is my max concentration. I want to only allow a specific set of investors to invest in my fund. So all of that, you can kind of like really customize your rule set, and that will define how your fund is going to operate on-chain. And all of those rules, the magic here is that all of those rules are enforced by the smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. So again, we're kind of like deploying the rules that we choose. And the next and last step is actually to invest in your own fund. So you can choose in which asset you want to invest. So here we're going to invest in Ether, in wrapped Ether, because Mellon funds only support ERC20 tokens. So that again takes 2 or 3 transactions. We're going to fast forward because it's not interesting for this presentation. So what happens when you invest in a fund, you're sending assets to the fund, and in return, you're receiving shares of that fund. Those shares are freely redeemable at any time, so you're always in control of your assets. And now, after those 3 steps, you have what we call an on-chain fund, or a technology-regulated and operated fund. So that's how it looks. This is the interface for an asset manager. You can define more rules. You can redeem your shares. You can claim your fees. You can trade on the different decentralized exchanges that are integrated. So here, so far in the past 2 years, we have integrated with Oasis Dex, 0x, Kyber Network, and so 0x has a few layers that we integrated with. So what you see here, this order book is actually an aggregation of all of the order books of these different exchanges, so that the user sees a unified order book and a deeper order book. So that's how it looks. There is a longer version of this demo, so I invite you to check it out online on our Medium blog if you're interested. And we're going to go back to the presentation. So what you just saw is the front end, the user interface to our smart contracts. Our smart contract system is extremely complicated and really tried to abstract away that complexity from the user. That being said, it is still a blockchain application, so there's still like some barriers in the UX or things that we could improve, obviously. So this brings us to the next part. So here we kind of like, we saw what product Melonport built in the past 2 years, which is a protocol for decentralized asset management together with a user interface to access those contracts. Now, as you know, when you're building a decentralized protocol, there are a few other things, a few other aspects that you need to think of. So when you have a token, you need to have a proper and well thought of token model. If you want to be really decentralized, you need to have plans for how the future of your protocol development will look like. So those are token economics and governance. We're going to start with the token economics, which we call melonomics. So this could be a presentation of itself, so I'm like really not going to go into the details, but I think it's really important to mention. And if you're interested in the work that we've done here, we wrote extensively on Medium on that as well. So melonomics, when we worked on the token economics, we really tried to do 2 things. The first thing is maximizing network effect, which is extremely important if you want your protocol to be successful. And the second thing is providing economic incentives to the different stakeholders in the network. So that could be developers, but also people working on the protocol. So the way we do that is twofold. The first thing is that we decided to open up the Mellon token to other teams and other people, which means that independent developers who are not from our team can apply for a grant in Mellon token out of the Mellon inflation pool and get compensated for working on the protocol, working on new features, improving the protocol in the future. The other way is if you're a team who wants to build on top of our protocol, because what we've built is very like first layer of this infrastructure, and there's so many use cases that people can build. If you want to do that, you can also apply for a funding request out of the Mellon inflation pool. So opening up the Mellon token allows us to align different teams and developers behind the same token, which we think is, aligning interest is always good. So the second thing, which is the kind of like very unique thing about our token model, is what we call Mellonomics 2, if you want to check it out. So basically, if we're going to compensate developers and team working on Mellon in Mellon tokens, we need to make sure that this token has integrity and has, desirability, has prospect for future value. So the way we worked on that was we really tried to make it so that the value and the purchasing power of the token would be linked to the usage of the network, that is the success of the network. So we do that through something which is called the Melon Engine. It's a specific type of buy and burn mechanism. So as I said, this could be a presentation of itself, but just very quickly how it works. When you use the Melon protocol on a certain set of functions, not all of them, so when you set up a fund, when you invest in a fund, when you claim your fees, you're going to pay what we call the asset management gas. So very simply, on Ethereum, you pay Ethereum gas, and when you use Melon on Ethereum, you're also going to pay the Melon gas on certain functions. That gas is paid in Ether, so as a user, you don't really have to own a Melon token or to kind of like purchase Melon token in order to use the protocol. You can just pay for that fee in Ether. And what happens in the background is that that Ether is sent to the Melon Engine contract. That is a unidirectional liquidity contract that keeps buying Melon out of the open market at a premium and selling the Ether. So it purchases Melon, and once it acquires Melon, it actually burns it. So I know it can sound a little bit complicated like that, but it's actually very simple. And what this provides, it actually provides a sink for the Melon token. So the more the protocol is used, the more Melon token we burn, which kind of also has the nice side effect of really lowering the velocity effect of many tokens utility tokens that we know of. So the whole Mellonomics suite of mechanism allows us to cater for the needs of the token holders and the developers. When we started working on all of that, we really tried to identify who are all of the stakeholders in our ecosystem and try to make it so that our whole model would cater to the need of each of them. So Mellonomics really caters to the needs of the token holders and developers working on Melon as they're compensated in Melon tokens. So we still have two other stakeholders in the ecosystem who are not looked after yet, which are the users and the maintainers of the protocol. So that is the next part of this talk, the governance model. So as I said, Melonport has liquidated and does not have control over the protocol anymore. That being said, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be maintained and that it's the end. It's actually just the beginning, but we really did not want to keep control and being the central entity in that whole ecosystem. So when we worked on governance, we really tried to think about what are our goals, what are we trying to achieve here. So first and foremost, we're trying to preserve the integrity and security of the network, which is extremely important when you're working on asset management infrastructure. The second thing is that we want to maximize the user adoption. As I said, the Melon Engine mechanism directly links the token value with the usage of the network. So, from just a logical perspective, you want to maximize the use of the network. And third is we are really trying to push the asset management 3.0 space. So we want the Melon ecosystem to be fostering innovation and encourage innovation in that space. So, the word governance is kind of like used for many, many things. So I'm just going to define it here, what it refers to in our case. So here, governance refers to the decisions made with regards to the protocol upgrades in the future. the resource allocation. So every year we have a certain amount of new Mellon tokens that are minted. This is inflation, and that's the resource that we have to fund future developments. So the governance system is the one who is going to be allocating those resources. And then the last thing are the network parameters. So there are a few of them, but the most important one is the asset management gas price, something related to the Melon Engine that I mentioned earlier. All right, so how do we do that? So when I talked about the stakeholders in our ecosystem, the next question that is really important to think about is what is the most fragile and unprotected stakeholders in your ecosystem? And in our case, these are the users. So the users in the Melon ecosystem are the fund managers, obviously, but also the investors who invest in funds, because at the end of the day, they're the ones putting their assets at risk. So we kind of like worked backward from that, knowing that we really want to make this model protect the user as much as possible and also represent their interests. So the way we try to build a model that is user-centric, but also skill-based, because again, it's a very complex protocol. It is very experimental, and it definitely requires technical expertise when making future decisions. So that brings us to the Melon Council, which is the new body that took over the control and ownership of the Melon protocol just 1 or 2 weeks ago. So we had our M1 conference in Zug, and we handed over the control of the protocol to the Melon Council. So what is the Melon Council? It's, as I said, a body that is going to make future decisions. The uniqueness about it is that it's composed of 2 subgroups. One of them is the Mellon Technical Council, and the second one is the Mellon Exposed Businesses Representative. So we're going to see each of them. So the Mellon Technical Council is a group of people who have technical expertise on the Mellon protocol, but also finance-related protocol, things that we could integrate. So people who have an expertise on something relevant to the future decisions that we're going to have to make. Those people are compensated in vested Mellon tokens over time, and their role here in that council is to bring their expertise to help making the best decisions for the future of the protocol, but also preserve the security of the network. So worth mentioning that the former Mellon port team appointed the initial seats on that council. So that is, we appointed eight seats to diverse people in the ecosystem. And from now on, that council can only grow by consensus. So the council members have to vote on the inclusion of new members in the future. So this model is not technocratic. There's not only technical people in there. The second part, and very important part of the Mellon Council, are the Mellon Exposed Businesses. So it's just a fancy word to say users. So because we're all on-chain, it's very, very easy for a user to prove that he is a user and that he has assets at risk on the network. So as a user, being a user gives you one natural right in the Mellon network, is to elect your representatives to sit on the Mellon Council together with the technical council members. So the user elect their representatives, and those representatives are able to represent all of the users and voice their interests and needs on the council. So what we get with this is a council that can grow in a consortium-like fashion, where users are really at the center of the model, where they can voice their needs, have their interests represented, but at the same time, they're not just left with a set of smart contracts that no one knows what to do with. So we have those technical council members who are here to support the users in their use of the protocol in the future. Obviously, in governance, you need to make sure that you have high ethical standards. So the Mellon Council aims at keeping those standards very, very high. All of the people on the council are known identities that actually have been revealed at our conference as well. And I mean, I know that some of them are in this room. But just as just one thought on our model, and I think it's really important even for other projects, is that this model really recognized the importance of the users, because at the end of the day, if we don't have users and if we don't protect them enough, we're going to fail. So this is not news, but these are the initial people on the Mellon Council that was announced at M1 2 weeks ago. So we have really a very diverse set of people in the ecosystem. We have security auditors, we have people representing decentralized exchanges, we have people from other projects such as MakerDAO, we have people from Parity, and our team is not going away. We have 1 seat on that council as a team, so it means that we have 1 vote out of all of those 8, currently 8, but might grow, will grow in the future, hopefully. So, so that closes the governance part, where we actually show how we cater for the needs of the users and the maintainers of the network. So as you can see, what we've worked on in the past 2 years was not only delivering the V1 of our protocol, but also making sure that we set the ground for future healthy developments and hopefully successful developments of the Mellon protocol. So thank you, and I don't know if I have time for questions. No? I can take questions outside if, right. All right, thank you very much.